Part 39. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 389. I am very sorry, Your Royal Highness, Ziwei shrugged. Maybe you can consider marrying a man who has a good castle. Lucia was obviously amused by the words of Ziwei. She really seemed to think seriously. I remember seeing a very beautiful dream castle in a book, called, yes, Violet Castle. One is called the high-ranking wizard of Sylvester Frost, pioneering the castle of the night. Ziwei has no choice but to lift his own feet. So he quickly transferred the topic and began an interview with Princess Lucia. The topic of the interview is closely related to Lucia's life. When I was young, I heard about the inside of Versailles. The prying of the royal family's privacy is undoubtedly a very exciting thing for everyone, which can significantly stimulate the sales of newspapers and periodicals. The next step is the life of the magician. The life in the Royal Academy of Magic is undoubtedly the mysterious existence that readers really like to know. Faced with this handsome and mature young reporter, Princess Lucia seems to be talking to her old friends, telling her own life and stories, and Ziwei has been using a pen to quickly record in her notebook, occasionally ask questions and guide the direction of the topic. This interview lasted for 2 full spells, until the sky was completely darkened, and Ziwei finally got all the things he wanted to know, and there were a lot of extras that the Lucia princess confided. It can be said that in the world of Orient, the profession of journalists did not mature at all. Princess Lucia also knew nothing about the sinisterness of the media industry. She completely regarded Joe Bradley as a friend and told her without reservation. Past life. In the case of Ziwei, Princess Lucia's life in the past 25 years can be said to be quite simple. When I was a child, I was well protected by Queen Barbara. I started my research on magic before I entered adolescence. Although the emotional life cannot be said to be a blank, but there is no real sexual experience, and in this era of aristocratic women, it is already very pure. After completing the interview, Princess Lucia seemed to have been separated from Joe's alienation and boundaries. Ziwei also took out the camera and began photography of Princess Lucia under the bright magical lights. In fact, the 85-year-old beauty of Princess Lucia is a real enjoyment for photographers. Because Sophie Mathilde is already more than 100% of the beauty, her every move is beautiful, and it is perfect to capture a moment at random, so that there is no challenge for the photographer, and it is fundamental. Show no level. However, Princess Lucia has renewed her life in the hands of photographer 11 Wei. 11 Wei personally adjusted the postures and movements that show the most personal charm for Princess Lucia. After the ingenious light changes, the whole person exudes on the body. A thrilling beauty. It can be said that from the perspective of photo effects, the beauty of Princess Lucia has reached the level of 95 cents, and there is no such big gap with the Duke of Roses. If the beauty of Sophie Mathilde is perfect, even beyond the mortal, with a sense of sacredness, then the core point that Ziwei set for Princess Lucia is the beauty of nobility and intellectuality. In the film of Ziwei, there are also many Lucia princesses wearing magic robe, holding magic books, performing magic experiments and magical calculations. Princess Lucia looked at this photo a bit idiotic. She did not know that she was so beautiful. Princess Lucia is still self-aware. She knows that although she is beautiful and beautiful compared to most mortals, but compared with those special blood donors, there are still a lot of gaps and shortcomings, but I did not expect this. Joe Bledley was able to capture her most shining aura and charm, almost making up for the gap that was originally like a divide. Seeing the effect of being a three-pointer in the mirror, Lucy's face showed a pleasant smile on her face. She was overjoyed and printed a bright red lip print directly on the face of Ziwei. "Thank you so much, Joe." Princess Lucia's eyes became a little blurred, and her body seemed to be slightly hot. The interview is over. Princess Lucia, the time is already late, I must hurry to return the agency, otherwise I am afraid I will not be able to catch up with the printing of the newspapers. Seeing that the situation seems to develop into another track, Ziwei quickly interrupted this, a scene that has begun to become awkward. Be aware that although Princess Lucia is a pretty good girl, there are still many gaps with his two girlfriends. Ziwei is very cautious about his feelings. The strange triangle relationship between Natalia and Charlotte has made him somewhat difficult to control. He does not intend to start a new relationship easily. Princess Lucia adjusted her mood in a short period of time. She is a high-level magician after all, not just a normal lonely woman. Call me Lucia, Joe. Princess Lucia looked at Joe's eyes and became a lot softer. Although the passion faded, it seemed to precipitate a more stable feeling. Lucia, goodbye. Ziwei almost rushed away from the villa. Standing on the windowsill and watching Joe leave, Princess Lucia showed a big smile. What a pity, Joe, you are just an ordinary person. But it's good, my marriage can't be controlled by myself, but my lover can be decided by me. Compared to the mysterious Sema master, you seem to be more in line with my standards. Looking at me, I don't have a clear marriage contractor. Now I have a relationship that is not loyal. Princess Lucia spread her palms and slowly clenched her into a fist. You can't escape my palm, Joe. For Mr. 11 Wei, the new boss of the newspaper, the old Murdoch has become increasingly obscured. Because when editing the interviews that Ziwei handed him, the old Murdoch was surprised to find that the content of the interview was far beyond the normal level, and even a lot of dialogues would only happen between old friends. What old Murdoch didn't know was that Ziwei had deleted some embarrassing conversations in advance, otherwise the old Murdoch would even look at Ziwei. It was another night's work. On the morning of the 20th of the second day, the new edition of the Palais Daily shined. This time, the newspaper directly printed 100,000 copies directly. The horse-drawn carriages belonging to the Chamber of Commerce of the Fortune Chamber of Commerce and the Bonaparte Chamber of Commerce were directly flew away. The newspapers that distributed ink and fragrance were distributed to each transfer station. Sent to the newsboy. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 390. After reading the first issue of the revised edition of the Palais Daily, many people are looking forward to the release of the next issue of the Par Daily. In the same way, they also have a faint worry. The first Duke of Roses is too bright. It can be said that it is the first beauty recognized by the entire French kingdom. Will there be a full-color photo of the second person in the second period? Can you not miss too many grades? Therefore, in the early morning of May 20th, many people waking up in advance from their sleep dreams, looking at the bright sky, looking under the eaves, straying on the street, waiting for the appearance of newsboys. Soon, the newsboys were scattered on the streets of Palais on time. They had an original union-like organization, and everyone had painted a fixed area. The same 3 copper coins, the second edition of the Palais Daily is still so good, the first edition is still a full-color picture. This picture is a woman of the same beauty, she is wearing a left half the luxurious princess dress with a pearly crown on the top of the head, while the right half is covered with a matching dark blue magic robe with a pair of black-rimmed glasses and a magic book with a magical aura in the right hand. Full of mysterious and intellectual atmosphere. This photo of Ziwei uses a synthetic technique that perfectly blends the two sparkling points of the noble and intellectual of Lucia Princess, forming a picture of a different style but unusually harmonious. For the presence of Princess Lucia, almost the entire Palais citizens are very clear that there are only 5 members of the royal family, each of which is the focus of the citizens. But compared to the 2 princes, Princess Lucia appeared too few times in front of ordinary people. Many people want to see the look of the princess, but few people can do so. However, the Palais Daily helped them reach this dream. Princess Lucia was on the newspaper that was suddenly emerging, and she was still interviewed by the chief reporter Joe. His Royal Highness is almost the inevitable heroine of all the Knight's novels for hundreds of years. Even though the magician is made by Ziwei is finally happy with the Princess Nicole of the Holy Norman Empire. The life is together. So for the noble and mysterious Princess Lucia, almost all men have a natural fantasy. The real Lucia princess finally showed up, and did not disappoint all those who secretly had some expectation. She is so noble and elegant, and she is also a quiet show. She has both the princess and the female magician. She has experienced countless readers when she made her debut. Even from a purely aesthetic point of view, Princess Lucia is not too far from the first beauty of the French kingdom, Sophie Mathilde. What's more, her noble identity has made countless people think about it. Many of the small details about the royal life and the life of the magician revealed in the interview also made many people feel happy to the extreme, as if they were personally transformed into Jo, and Princess Her Royal Highness. An in-depth exchange. This newspaper has undoubtedly ushered in a sales frenzy again. The first batch of 100,000 newspapers and magazines sold quickly, and the 100,000 copies were almost sold out. The second edition of the Palais Daily sold more than 198,000 copies in a half-day period. The sale of a newspaper will inevitably affect the sales of other newspapers and magazines. This sales volume has exceeded the total sales of the other three major newspapers and magazines. Reached a real limit and peak. Such achievements have surprised countless people who have paid attention to this sudden rise in the newspapers. The wolf is coming, and the newspapers in Paris and even the Kingdom of France will undergo tremendous changes. Men are concerned about the noble women who are the best in the world before and after, and the women are concerned about the costumes, accessories, and dresses on them. The camera is undoubtedly hot, and the camera that was originally sent out by the card was put into the collection room by many families. However, with the popularity of the Par Daily, these powerful families quickly took the camera out. Put into use. The Violet Chamber of Commerce is now renting a 3-story building next to the Fortune Chamber of Commerce as a temporary headquarters. Currently, the only photo studio in Paris is also here. The sensitivity of the people of Paris to the popularity is far beyond the expectations of Ziwei. In just 2 days, it has become unstoppable. Numerous well-dressed citizens lined up to take photos here, and many people are looking for cameras. However, in fact, not everyone has the photographic technology of Ziwei, and the beauty of the 80 still can only produce the effect of 80%. The camera itself does not have the beauty effect. Many of the dignitaries have seen Princess Lucia and the Duke of Mathilde, and of course they know the huge gap in their value, so Joe Bradley is the chief reporter of the Par Daily. Instantly became popular in a circle. By the third magic in the afternoon, the Paris newspaper had been surrounded by countless expensive carriages, and the various counties of the Duke of Marquis, the Countess, were reunited here, asking the chief reporter Joe Bradley to come over and interview them. Everyone has a heart for beauty, not to mention that everyone is not too bad, and the beauty is more than the Princess Lucia. As long as you can get on the first cover of the Paris Daily, it means no doubt. In a moment, it will become the man of the entire city of Paris. The hot situation made the old Murdoch unprepared, and the old Murdoch, who was still lying in the bed some time ago, was surrounded by a group of noble ladies, and the smell of perfume on them made the old Murdoch faint. Under this circumstance, the old Murdoch had no choice but to contact Ziwei again by contacting Crystal, and finally got a message that made him relieved. Our chief reporter Joe has received an invitation from Bishop Anses to a special interview with the Notre Dame de Paris. Please come back tomorrow. Bishop Anses is the Church of the Glorious Lord throughout the parish of France. The highest person in charge, his name obviously has a very strong shocking effect. But just a slap in the face, the ladies of the nobles reflected, we have to book. Now we will line up. Joe, the chief reporter of Ziwei's disguise, was sitting in the carriage of the Church of the Glorious Lord and went to the Notre Dame in Paris. He did receive an invitation from Bishop Anses. For the second time, I entered the magnificent and sacred and elegant Notre Dame of Paris. In the contemplative room of the backyard, Ziwei once again saw the Angzai's bishop and the Don Lord Eulizia. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 391. Although Ziwei's disguise after mastering the change spell is very realistic, it is impossible to escape the eyes of a demigod anyway. His dream star, the soul of the treasure, is as bright as the stars shining in the night sky. This is why the Lord of the Morning and the Bishop of Anthos treat him very equally and politely. Mr. Ziwei, you really gave me a lesson. Bishop and Sissy warmly invited Ziwei to sit down on the chair with a soft sheepskin blanket. You not only have unique research and knowledge in magic, and there is such an epoch-making innovation in the media. 11 Wei dispelled the disguise and restored the normal form. His eyes fell on Eulizia. Today, she is no longer a golden shadow, but a form that has truly become human. A soft, smooth golden long hair straight to the ankle position, her size is more than 1.7 meters, the body is very standard, almost the most suitable for most people's aesthetics of the kind of woman. Her skin is as white and smooth as milk. There is a golden crown in the shape of a golden crown above the eyebrows. The black eyes are introverted, and the whole person exudes a kind of light and sacred atmosphere. People can't help but want to be close. I want to admire. It seems that Miss Eulizia is the one who really invited me today. Ziwei saw the human form of Eulizia and guessed the intention of Bishop and Sissy. Yes. After the discussions and choices of the Cardinal Church, the Pope has already given a new metaphor to the entire Orient world in the Holy City of Vatican. Miss Eulizia has become the new glory of the Holy See. The Virgin is a very honorable post in the Church of the Glorious Lord, whose authority is almost beyond the ordinary cardinal. The first glory of the Virgin was the birth of the Virgin of the Sun, and the name of the Notre Dame of Par. Since the 30 Years' War, the Glorious Lord's Church has never seen any glory. Obviously, the Lord of the Morning has received a lot of high-level support from the Church of the Glorious Lord, otherwise she will not be able to operate as a shining virgin. The end of the original contract is about to come, and Eulizia can't help but go to the front desk and speed up the pace on the road to God. I am very honored to see the Holy Lady. Ziwei stood up and walked slowly to the front of Eulizia, and she also extended her right hand with great cooperation. 11 Wei gently took the hand of the Lord of the Morning, and he immediately realized that the body was formed almost entirely from the rich and the light of the morning light. It was a humanoid sun. If it is a necromancer or a lich who touches the Lord of the Morning at such a close distance, there will no doubt be instantly melted into this horrible glory, and the dead can no longer die. In a sense, the Lord of the Morning and the Lord of Music apparently chose different methods to obtain the nodes that walked between humans. The Master of Music really lived for 25 years with the identity of Sophie Mathilde. She is the Duke of Rose, the Duke of Rose is her. The Lord of the Morning Dawn seems to not want the world to be contaminated with her sacredness. This simple energy incarnation cannot be regarded as a complete human identity, but it has the same mysterious meaning as Ziwei's etheric body. The Par Daily is now the first media to deserved, although it only took 2 days. Bishop Anses said to Ziwei, I want to ask you to make an exclusive interview with Eulizia. In addition, I hope that this interview can be published in the Glorious Proverbs at the same time. Ziwei pondered for a moment, still very refreshed, and agreed. For the first time in 200 years, the first glory of the Church of the Glorious Lord chose the Palais Daily for the first time, which is undoubtedly a very glorious opportunity. Ziwei will never underestimate the human beings in this world. I believe that with the 2-day explosion of the Parley Daily, the newspapers of Pili and Daxiao must be staring closely. I am afraid that there will be a follow-up soon. The imitation of typesetting and the emergence of newspapers and magazines will inevitably affect the sales of the subsequent Par Daily. It is not realistic that the Par Daily cannot monopolize the entire newspaper market. What Ziwei wants to do is to turn the Par Daily into an authoritative newspaper and magazine with an unshakable market position, so any valuable interviewee is a valuable resource worth fighting for. In fact, as early as the first Palais Daily appeared in the streets of Paili, Bishop Anses began to notice this rapid trend. Although he is very old, he has a heart of acceptance for new things and has the courage to try. Glorious Proverbs was founded under his insistence. It mainly talks about the doctrines in the revelation of glory, the glorious history and merits of the glorious Lord's Church, and some small stories of evangelism and persuasion. The Lord and the evil deceased will receive the sacred punishment of the plot. This newspaper has a very stable sales volume, and every week, it is about 60,000 copies. Almost all families with good faith in the conditions of the glory will be good. Choose to order. The interview with the younger lady of the Morning Sun, Eulysia, is not so free to play. Every piece of information that the church can come up with is considered again and again, accompanied by an editor of the glorious Proverbs. Also a pastor of the master class. After an interview, Ziwei discovered that the entire interview was too formal and it was an official notice, so the popularity of the people would obviously be greatly reduced. However, Ziwei did not immediately propose it. Until the editor of the glorious Proverbs left, when the photography session was about to begin, Ziwei asked Alice to ask a question. Miss Eulysia, except are you destined to embark on the road to becoming a god, do you have any other hobbies? Eulyxia, who has always maintained a noble and elegant shape, suddenly stunned. Her brows twitched slightly and her eyes floated upwards, as if they were in thought. Ziwei took out the camera and quickly captured the rare moment of Eulyxia. Ulysses Bayuru's face finally ignited a red mist. She snorted, "This is not allowed to send out." Ziwei had to sigh, and it was also an energized body. Ulysses was able to be so vivid, far more powerful than the etheric form. In the future, there may be a chance to discuss with the Lord of the Morning, and to strive for the ethereal self can also look like a real person. This may be another breakthrough direction. Can you answer my question, Miss Eulychia? Ziwei did not do anything, and continued to ask. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 392. The issue of Ziwei is not a random inquiry, but he really wants to know more about the specific situation of a demigod. Eulysia is the first light in the world of Orient. This should not be the tout of the Ancesis bishop. It is very likely that it is reality. Then the taste of Eulysia is too weak, and it is very natural. Strong deity. This world needs light. Once the Lord of Glory leaves, I must shoulder this great mission, Eulysia responded. Besides this, everything else is not important. Euresia answered this, she thought so. From her body, 11 Wei saw a more pure deity than the owner of music, which is the difference between the two. In the following photography session, Ziwei put forward a lot of requirements, and Eulysia also completely searched for the appropriate scenic address and put on the appropriate posture according to the requirements of Ziwei. Ziwei also specially arranged a choir composed of children to sing in the afterglow of the setting sun, and the Lord of the Morning light became the most shining highlight of this beautiful scenery. Although I can't keep up with the dawn of the next day, this is already the best condition I can do. After completing all the interviews, Ziwei has left a few more solemn photos, which will be used in glorious Proverbs. After Ziwei returned to the newspaper, he couldn't help but exaggerate and shouted, "Is it the wrong place?" Originally dilapidated and empty newspapers have become completely new, adding a lot of expensive furniture and decorations, but the style is too mixed. It is nondescript, more like the decoration of the nouveau riche home. Joe, every day you refresh the limit I know about you, old Murdoch said with emotion. I am almost out of this crazy age. Today there are 32 ladies and 17 the aristocratic lady wants to book your interview. I don't have the ability to shirk them. I can only register them all, and I will persuade them all when they are persuaded. These are the gifts they left for the newspaper. As for the gifts for you, it is stacked up with a whole storage room. Working hard, Murdoch editor. This is the interview today. 11 Why Song loosened the tie and threw the interview to the old Murdoch. Glorious Virgin, old Murdoch suddenly burst into a high-pitched snoring. God! My lord, this is the first shining sacred woman in 200 years. This is the most shining exclusive news. Damn Joe, I am beginning to wonder if you ever kissed the back of the lucky goddess. Although the Orient world does not currently have a lucky goddess, this statement is very popular. I think I am probably the lover of the goddess of luck. Zai Wei spread his hands and responded with a smile. It's an enviable young man. Old Murdoch's eyes were beaming and he was enthusiastic about the editorial work. Although he was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper, all the interviews of the chief reporter Joe were edited by him. It was a busy night. Old Murdoch completed the editing of the draft before the early morning. Zai Wei's big hand waved and directly arranged a total of 150,000 copies. After 2 consecutive sessions of the Par Daily, many people are looking forward to the new issue of the Par Daily. They are eager to see who will be on the 3rd day of the Parley Daily, who will be on the first edition of the Big Seal. To know that the first day of the Great Seal is the first beauty recognized by the French kingdom, the Duke of Sophie Mathilde, the second day is the only Princess of Lucia in the Kingdom of France, who has this qualification and their shoulders. Many casinos have started to make large-scale bets. The lowest odds are the Bishop of Anthos, with a loss of 1.1. This is mainly because many people know that the chief reporter Joe has been invited to the Notre Dame of Par. Although the Bishop of Anthos is not a beautiful woman, it is a cardinal of the Lord of the Church of the Glorious Lord. The legendary rank is strong. This is a more convincing look. From the perspective of status, it is no more than the previous 2. Debut characters are even better. So in the early morning of May 21st, there were so many people waiting for the arrival of newsboys on the streets and alleys before the sun rose. From time to time, there are sporadic fires on the streets. This is why smokers can't help but pick up cigars or cigarettes. Old Josie is one of them. As a citizen of Piley who lived for generations, his father left him a 2-story building, just opposite the first street of the National University of France. Therefore, the old Josie family vacated a full 6 rooms to rent to the students of the First National University of France, and the family quickly changed from ordinary to well-off. Old Josie, who has no life pressure, began to enjoy life with ease. His education is not high, he can barely read, and reading newspapers and gambling is undoubtedly the biggest hobby. Old Josie's second son is a thug in a nearby casino, so he knows that many gambling scams are ruined. Therefore, Josie has always been a small gambling lover, and he does not expect to make a fortune by this, but instead kind of pastime. In the last 2 editions of the Palais Daily, he bought all of them in one issue. To be honest, he was attracted by the beautiful pictures of the first edition of the newspaper. The old Josie, who is almost 60 years old, saw the Duke of the Rose, and it seems to have been revived for the second spring. In the evening, he worked his wife for a long time, in exchange for his wife's spring sunshine and a 1 yuan gold franc. Huge amount of pocket money. He is also very interested in the fresh gambling game opened by the casino. He is not willing to press a whole gold franc once, he still only pressed 10 silver coins. He did not choose the Bishop of Anthos, who had the lowest odds, nor did he choose other characters in the front row of the queue, but chose the last one, other. In almost all of the nets, all the French characters, even including the fall of King Charles VIII, the casino also opened the other option, but the odds are not high, only one lost 1.5. Therefore, there are not many options for this option. Old Josie is one of them. Old Josie, who are you crushing? Old Josie was smoking a cigarette, and was pushed from behind, and it was his neighbor Louis. Louis also has a 2-story building, but he is an old gambler. He earns almost how much he will lose into the casino. He is almost 40 years old and he doesn't even have a wife. However, the only thing he deserves to be praised is that even if he gambles again, he will never press his only property, the ancestral small building, and will not borrow the usury, so it will still be moist. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 393. Although some looked down on Lewis's neighbor, old Josie responded politely, "I pressed other, 10 silver coins." Lewis exaggerated and laughed, "Ha ha ha, old Josie, you are a waste of 10 silver coins. Do you know why the odds of Bishop Onsi are so low?" Yesterday afternoon, many of the dignitaries rushed to the Parley newspaper. The editor-in-chief of the newspaper personally told the nobles, "The chief reporter Joe has been invited to the Notre Dame de Paris." Josie was a little annoyed. It seems that the Archbishop of Anthony was almost nailed, but fortunately he only invested 10 silver coins, and it was not too heartbroken. Lewis smiled smugly, "I pressed the 5 Anthony bishops of the golden francs, and I can earn 50 silver coins directly." 5 gold francs? I am afraid that you have just rented the rent this month. You are not afraid to drink the northwest wind this month? Old Josie asked in amazement. How could you lose? Lewis slammed the shoulders of old Josie. "Brother, you see the newsboy coming. The answer will be announced soon." The newsboy comes over. "Here are 2 copies." Lewis shouted loudly, "Brother, look at the amount of 50 silver coins I earned today. I will smash you for this newspaper." Lou said that he had placed 6 copper coins and handed them to the newsboy. Old Josie didn't say anything. He took a copy of the PRI Daily from Lewis, and then he suddenly burst into surprise. Then he showed a big smile on his face. "Lewis, how can I not know that the Bishop of Anthos actually is it a blonde beauty?" Lewis circled his eyes and stared at the first edition of the PAR Daily. His breathing became rushed and his chest was violently ups and downs. This was not because he saw a peerless beauty, but he was hurting his own 5. Kim Frank. Ah, a group of scammers. The PRI, who told me their chief reporter Joe went to Notre Dame de Paris. Old Josie has turned to the second edition. This beauty is actually the new glorious saint of the Church of the Glorious Lord. This is something that has not happened in 200 years. Today's first edition is the cover of the Morning Sun, Eulysia, a holy white robes, her whole person bathed in the golden sunset. The golden long hair seems to be completely integrated with the surrounding environment. Solemn the Notre Dame of Paris served as an excellent backdrop, giving her a sacred and bright atmosphere. Although a closer look, this glorious saint is also a peerless beauty who is completely inferior to the previous 2 issues, but there is almost no thought of life. This is a true and shining sacred woman, the Lord's shepherd. The glory of the Lord's faith has completely penetrated every corner of the French kingdom, and no one can create a guilty thought. No one thought that the first glory of the Holy Virgin in 200 years came from the Notre Dame of Paris, and the first appearance in the public was actually through the PAR Daily. This is undoubtedly the day when the status of PAR Daily is once again elevated, and it is reflected in today's sales volume, which is a new high. The first print of 150,000 copies, actually sold faster than yesterday's 100,000 copies. Ziwei had to print another 150,000 copies. On May 21 alone, the third edition of the Pili Daily newspaper sold 270,000 copies, and the remaining 30,000 copies were sold out in half a day. This sales is no longer a miracle, it is a miracle. According to feedback from sales channels, many illiterate believers bought the newspaper. They used the first edition of this edition of the PRI Daily as a sacred object and placed it at home for worship. On this day, the casinos have become big winners. The number of other gamblers is too small and the odds are not high. The most painful thing is not to lose 5 gold francs holding the old Josiah crying Lewis, but the editor of the Parley Evening News. In the past 2 days, after getting the instructions of the Marquis of the behind-the-scenes Gold Master Closer, he immediately began to follow the Parley Evening News and revised it, and no doubt adopted the first version of the full-color picture. Version. Only with the help of Marquis of Clozel, he can only find a marquise as the first edition of the first edition. Even more painful is that although he mastered the camera's photography skills, the photos that were photographed not only failed to beautify the marquise, but also showed her subtle shortcomings more realistically in the photos. It can be said that this kind of color map that can support a full version looks beautiful and full of visual effects, but it puts too high a demand on the characters themselves. A little bit of it will be amplified abruptly and become so conspicuous. The editor-in-chief does not have PS technology. The marquise got frustrated after taking a piece of film and directly tore the photo and smashed it. She will never allow the Pili Evening News to be released. In 3 days, the sales of the Pili Evening News plummeted into the abyss. The latest sales volume has reached less than 20,000 copies, which is undoubtedly the most strongly affected newspaper by the Par Daily. The editor-in-chief knows that although the Marquis of Clozel seems to be amiable, the mainland is extremely cruel and suspicious. He will never allow anyone to bully, so he can only walk into the Marquis of Gloucester again. Luxury mansion. So, the first issue after the revision of the evening news has completely failed. The Marquis of Gloucester looked calmly. Yes, I have already ordered to follow the old version, and I don't have a color picture for the time being. The fine sweat on the forehead of the editor's forehead began to tremble. The sales volume is less than 20,000 copies. Is there any need for distribution? The city of Paris has a full 2 million people, Marquis Clolux said. Today, I will stop issuing. I will contact one more tomorrow. The person on the cover is on the cover. You must hurry to practice photography. Yes, this is going to practice. The editor ran out and rolled out. The Marquis of Clozel did scream in anger, but he knew that he should not be directed at the editor of the evening paper. The editor-in-chief also graduated from the First National University of France. He has worked in this industry for many years and is very capable. This failure is not that he is too bad, but that the enemy is too strong. The Marquis of Gloucester apparently has a very powerful information channel in Wang du Pili, and has already figured out the behind-the-scenes gold lord of the Par Daily. Sylvester Frost, the principal of the Violet Academy, has just finished a speech at the Great Royal Academy of France, and has been the young high-ranking magician who was personally interviewed by Victor Hugo. This is undoubtedly a bit of a tough enemy. The high-level magician itself is not enough, but he has to consider the attitude of the Lord of Change. Thinking of this, he told his housekeeper, "Go to the Royal Academy of Magic, please ask the principal assistant Ben Shaming, and say that I will invite him to see him at noon tomorrow, and bring Marco back." To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 394. At this moment, Zai Wei is sitting in the Par Ri newspaper. He has a lot of invitations with a colorful and fragrant fragrance in his hands. It is an invitation from the top women in Pili. It can be said that this is exactly what one of those who are interested in climbing up has dreamed of. The entire upper circle of the French kingdom has been completely open to him since then. And carefully open these invitations to read one by one. There are many hints and invitations, and even a few close-fitting women's underwear. I am afraid it is still original. However, Zai Wei naturally does not specifically pick up and smell it. It seems that the pursuit of beauty and fame has undoubtedly made these noble women become crazy. It is a pity that although these women have very prominent fathers and husbands, they themselves have not made any deserving deeds, and the amount of gold is slightly insufficient. However, in the face of dozens of swarming invitations, Zai Wei naturally cannot easily refuse, otherwise she will offend countless women who are extremely strong. Although it is impossible to board the first edition cover, the full 16-page version of the Par Daily has undoubtedly a lot of room to operate. Ziwei intends to open a special edition of aristocratic ladies to exclusively hold these powerful women. Photos and profiles. Then the question is coming. Who is the cover of the 4th edition of the Par Daily? After the 3rd period, this has formed a tradition and will become a feature of the Par Daily. The casinos that just made the sweet spot quickly opened a new game, but the odds of Bishop Onsi have risen sharply and can't take the first place. As the chief reporter Joe, Ziwei has not received the next heavyweight invitation. In fact, the Par Daily cannot choose women as the cover characters, but the really high-powered men are still waiting to see. This is undoubtedly a new test for Ziwei and Par Daily. The higher and higher expectations of the people may turn into a disappointing anger at any time, and this wave of anger is likely to be operated by people with a heart. Will swallow up the short-lived glory and victory of the Palais Daily. For the Pai Lai Evening News and the Close family, Ziwei has not been relaxed. The other party is very calm and has no movements, but it also means that it is likely to be brewing. Our big reporter Joe, what are you thinking about? Ziwei's thoughts were interrupted by a voice, and it was a wonderful thing to walk in. I am considering who is using the cover of the 4th issue of the Par Daily, Ziwei told his thoughts all over the card. Chiao is a smart person. He naturally understands Ziwei's concerns, so he is also in deep thought. After a long time, Ka Miao suddenly made a snap. Joe, I thought of the most suitable candidate. Oh, Ziwei replied in confusion. Xavi Frost. The best-selling author, the great musician, the dean of the Violet Academy, the young high-ranking magician. Kami gently patted his hand. The handsome appearance, graceful, rich and enemies, future far from big. How? Undoubtedly, Ziwei himself fell into a blind spot of thinking, and he did not expect to interview himself. But this is undoubtedly a very good opportunity. The Duke of Rose, the Royal Highness of the Princess, the Glorious Virgin, and the 3 women who shine to the extreme, no doubt have reached a peak that cannot be surpassed and can only decline. However, the most powerful and top-ranking people of His Majesty the King of Change and the Lord of Change are also temporarily unable to board the Par Daily, so it is the best choice to find another way. Ziwei himself has a unique identity of a magician, a school principal, a mage lord, a pioneering knight, a big writer, and a great musician. It can be said to be very attractive to the people. His own looks and temperament need not be said, never been hated by women, but also received a lot of love and appreciation. It is necessary to know that Ziwei has a brilliant record of Natalia's righteousness that has already been bent by virtue of his own value and strength. More importantly, through the highly anticipated platform of the Par Daily, he can spread the influence of Violet more widely, which is the original idea of his acquisition and revision of the Par Daily. Just as Ziwei was shaken, he jumped out suddenly. Ziwei, let me finish the interview with you. I have to try to be a big reporter. The decision of Zero will undoubtedly make Ziwei firmly believe. Interview yourself and interview yourself. Ziwei is not a person who likes to hide. In the past few days, Ziwei's incarnation reporter Joe interviewed 3 people, and he did not expect to become an interviewer in the blink of an eye. Zero-faced and serious, holding a camera of the same size as himself, directed Ziwei to start the photography process. There are many beautiful scenery of Violet Fort and Violet Academy here, which can be used as materials. After taking a few photos, I stopped shooting with some dissatisfaction. No, not enough charm. Ziwei, you have to transform into an elf form. The human form of Ziwei according to his standard purely from the perspective of appearance can only be counted as 90, of course, the temperament, identity addition rate is also very large. But once it turns into a Japanese elf form, it really shines to the extreme. It is no exaggeration to say that it can be counted as 100% and reaches the limit of the common custom. For the sake of convenience, Ziwei has not changed into this form for a long time, and it will undoubtedly bring him a lot of unnecessary troubles. However, since it is for propaganda, it is natural to show a more shining point. Ziwei has changed into a Japanese elf form, wearing a white magic robe that is exclusively provided by Zero. This magic robe has a very gorgeous inscription and magic lines, giving people an inexplicable mystery. This form of Ziwei is undoubtedly more brilliant, and his side is also floating with the energy ball of the four elements, which is the characteristic that the element magician can display when he is full of magic. Zero was finally satisfied. After completing the shooting task for Ziwei, she started post-production. For her who has recovered many intelligent core modules, these tasks are not difficult, but Zero is perfect, only to do to the best effect. Ziwei himself wrote an interview for himself, and revealed a small amount of information and secrets that everyone might pay attention to. The most important space was used to promote the Violet Academy and the Violet Chamber of Commerce. When Ziwei completed the compilation of this interview, Zero also completed the post-production. Ziwei glanced at the film. Is this too cool? Isn't it cool? And how to attract fans? Zero holds a few color pictures that are taller than her, and she can't put it down. I didn't expect that I would have to embark on the road of idols. Ziwei was heartbroken. I am obviously a strength. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 395. After seeing the new interview and the map, the old Murdoch's mouth was so large that it could be easily inserted into an apple. Can the cameras shine this effect? In fact, when I first knew that I was going to do this, I refused. It was just adding some stunts, it was fake, it was cool and cool, you know. Ziwei smiled and said one in Orin. A stock that no one knows in the world. My cognitive ceiling has been refreshed again. Old Murdoch shook his head. Mr. Ziwei, you really surprised me. Reassured, as the editor-in-chief of the Par Daily, there will be more surprises waiting for you. Ziwei's mood is inevitably a little floating, and he would like to know the reaction after the publication of the newspaper tomorrow. When Ziwei was still in college, he was once joined by the roommates to participate in the Xingai Guang qualifier. It was a pity that he could only be said to be eye-catching and his voice was flat. He was eliminated directly in the pre-selection of San Muxing Xinluo. Time has passed for decades, but the memory is so clear, as if it reappeared yesterday. In a sense, Ziwei is also a person who likes to show off the limelight, with a heart that wants to shine in front of countless people. In the end, he explored countless star maps for the Federation, and he became the greatest interstellar explorer of the entire Federation. He has far more popularity in the entire Federation than all the stars. He boarded the textbook, and the Federal Medal awarded him more than 100. Even a pioneering planet with hundreds of millions of people was named directly by him. It is a pity that the last life is like a splendid fireworks, only a moment of shining, and in this world, Ziwei is going to be the eternal sun. My heart is lonely, but it brings light and heat to the people around me. I want to shine, I want more people to see me. I can have 3 or 2 friends to know that I understand me, and there is no regret in this world. As if I felt the feeling of Ziwei, I came over and squatted on his shoulders. My relatives licked his face with soft hair and then stuck it with him. Old Murdoch had been editing the interview, and it took a long time to notice the calm around him. He looked up and saw the warm scene of one person and one cat. Mr. 11-Way's eyes fell on the horizon in the distance, as if he saw the endless night and saw the bright future. The old Murdoch snorted, and his face also showed a feeling of sensation, as if recalling his youthful years. However, he quickly adjusted his mood and re-edited the press. In this issue of the Palais Daily, Ziwei first printed 100,000 copies, which is bound to decline in sales compared to the previous record of 270,000 sales. However, as long as it does not fall below the 150,000th of the first day, even if it is successfully landed, with this stage of preparation, it will not be too difficult to find the right cover person. 11-Way is still very self-aware. In Wangdu Pai Li, he is just an outsider. Although he has achieved little success, he seems to be the most strong talent in the eyes of the real strong. And for the public, the attraction is natural and the previous three have great deficiencies. After all, most of the people who read the newspaper are adult males. The fourth edition of the Palais Daily finally began to be sold in the expectation of countless people. This newspaper has helped tens of thousands of people develop a good habit of going to bed early and getting up early. Even the newsboys have become somewhat uncomfortable. The cover of this issue is no longer a peerless beauty, and a new routine has been changed. However, the cover of this time has become more attractive. No matter how old or young, no one can pull their eyes out of this beautiful picture to the ultimate picture. In the center of the whole picture, it is a water blue color, smashed to the ultimate star body, surrounded by numerous shining stars, and a silver moon hanging above the sky. And this aqua blue star seems to be in the 5 white slender fingers. The master of this palm is a handsome Japanese elf. He wears a luxurious white magic robe, his eyes are bright, standing on in the endless astral world, as if everything is under control. A vast and powerful feeling is coming. The star is facing the reader's side, and there is a brownish green and green continent in the blue water. Even if you have a little understanding of the mainland, you can recognize that this is the continent of Orient. Territory. This aqua blue star is the world of Orient. Above the sky, the moon and the stars are interlaced, and the endless stars are so vast that this is the first time that almost everyone has seen the world outside their feet. This beautiful picture is almost intoxicating to everyone. However, if you truly separate your consciousness from this vast star map, the reader will realize that who is this mysterious Japanese elf mage? Why is he able to hold the stars erecting the void, so powerful? It is natural to know that the effect of zero is not a $5 stunt, and that the people of the Orient world have never experienced the viciousness of PS technology, and naturally can't tell the truth. In short, this kind of cool stunt to no friends has naturally shocked all the readers of the Par Daily. Everyone has a thought in mind. Who is this Japanese wizard? An urge to understand his desire naturally expands. However, the second edition is not an exclusive interview with the past, but an article, looking at the stars, overlooking the earth. This occupies a whole page of articles with a few pieces of zero-use stunts to make the continent and the plane map, helping most readers to truly understand the true relationship between the Orient continent and the main material plane and the vast expanse. Although this part of the world's exploration was completed by the second law void travels Grodik in 1456, this is the first time that all the public outside the magician is presented. And even for the magician, the image in this article makes the chaotic picture in their minds instantly clearer. For a magician who has no deep inheritance in many small places, if you can get this newspaper, you will be very helpful even when you know the truth of the world. It was only in the third edition that an exclusive interview was made, and this edition also had a large color map occupying half a page. This is the picture of the Japanese elf form of 11 Wei wearing a luxurious robe, the 4-color energy ball rotating around the magic robe. This time, Zai Wei is no longer a kind of existence similar to the virtual shadow. His appearance is clearly presented to all readers. Handsome fried days. This is the only evaluation of countless readers at the moment. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 396. Whether it is for elves or magic or the astral world, most readers know nothing about it, only one impression. But at this moment, these elements are magically combined to form a picture that is completely beyond everyone's cognition. This shock, which is completely beyond the limits of reason and imagination, almost only produces an emotion. That is worship. Intoxicated, addicted, admired, dependent, fanatic. At this moment, Zai Wei has become the true in the minds of countless people. Continue to turn the Parley Daily backwards, almost every edition has a myriad of beautiful pictures, Parley Daily can be renamed Pile Pictorial. Each edition is refreshing the public's perception of the person of Sylvester Frost. In the third edition, he is a powerful magician with a fairy blood. In the fourth edition, he is the owner of a dream castle Violetburg. In the fifth edition, he has an open and advanced magic school. The sixth edition, he is a pioneering knight, a mage lord, and the Violet Island in the western Golden Sea has such beautiful scenery. In the seventh edition, he merged with the best-selling author Sylvester Frost in everyone's mind. In the eighth edition, he once again became the great musician Ziwei. All kinds of impressions are superimposed together, and the people have a magical cognition. It turns out that our side is unknowingly out of such a superhuman figure. Why didn't we know before? Why hasn't anyone ever connected the great musician 11 Wei with the best-selling author 11 Wei? Almost at the same time, many people quickly turned back to the first edition, and began to carefully read each paragraph. In the text, except for a small amount of revealing his own news, it can be seen as a soft paper for the promotion of the Violet Island and the Violet Academy, but almost no one can see it. After the 8th edition, it is a novel written by 11 Wei in the Parley Daily serialized by a magician, the Dragon of the Circle. In short, the mysterious Sylvester Frost suddenly appeared in front of all the Piley citizens through the Parley Daily, and it really shines. Reflected in sales, this is the 100,000 copies of the newspaper, half a magic time is snapped up. This speed is even more than yesterday. After 11 Wei got the news, the hand that had been slightly trembling was instantly calmed down. He stood up and showed a confident smile on his face. 20,000 copies were printed. The 200,000 new Palais Daily was able to survive the noon, and the horse-drawn carriages of the Chamber of Commerce and the Bonaparte Chamber of Commerce were once again swarming and blocked outside the newspaper. Add another 200,000 copies, Ziwei has been somewhat numb to the numbers. He only knows that this issue of the Palais Daily will create a real sales miracle, and it will never be able to surpass it again in a short time unless he can get an interview with Ms. Yinyu or the Glorious Lord. 20,000 copies came to the top of the sunset, although there are still many people who are eager for newspapers, but Ziwei has terminated the request to continue printing. So this period of Parley Daily sales fixed at 500,000 copies of this incredible number. At least 200,000 people have come up with the idea of buying this newspaper after seeing the cover. This is the real chance to know what the world should look like. Through this issue of the Par Daily, the citizens of Wangdu know what the land is under us, and what is our world like. And the elf magician holding the stars became the latest code name of Ziwei in almost a moment, and it was widely circulated. Xavi Frost, you really gave me an unexpected surprise. Among the Rose Castle, Sophie Mathilde smiled and looked at the Parley Daily in his hand, hands holding the stars. This is it, your ideal and pursuit? Perhaps in the future, you will be able to embark on the same path as me. Princess Lucia looked at the picture of Ziwei in the third edition. God, it is a perfect man who should not exist in this world. I don't even know that he turned out to be a Japanese elf. In the meditation room of the Notre Dame de la Paix, the younger lady of the morning, Ulysses, looked unhappy and said something angrily to the Bishop of Anthesis. Xavier left a hand for us. When I took pictures of me, he did not do the step. As the Lord of the Morning, who is interested in the existence of God, she can naturally understand the gap between the two. It can be said that these cool photos artificially improve the strength of Ziwei, even with these chapters. Can let countless people look up to him to worship him. But on the day I boarded the front page yesterday, it was just a simple photo, and I took advantage of the light and the shadow. Obviously we all looked down on Master Ziwei, Your Highness. Bishop Anses nodded. He used the music master, Princess Lucia, and His Highness to make a series of curtains, and finally shine. Debut, reached the peak in one fell swoop, and spread his influence thoroughly throughout the Kingdom of France. He used this method of overbearing to incompetently enter the most up-and-coming circle of the French kingdom, and no one can help him. We have a relationship with him, and it is impossible for Ziwei Master to pave the way for you with all the resources, Your Highness. So Bishop Anthony, my future pope, can choose the Westway Master to join the deduction of the morning magic. Euless calmed down, she asked. Wait again, Ziwei is like a huge stone put into the original calm water, it will inevitably rise up. Bishop Ansi flashed a glimmer of light. Let's take a look at the west of this hand holding the stars, Master, how to deal with this challenge. Is it? I am full of confidence in him, Eulizia responded. Then let us wait and see, Your Highness, and Sissy's mouth showed a kind smile. The cover of the Evening News contacted by Marquis of Gloucester is the Grand Prince Yunfield. As the Prince of the French Kingdom, the successor of the Golden Lion's blood, just 30 years old, has become the Knight of the Master's Peak, only a line away from the legendary ranks, the French Army's Major General, the head of the army. He has sufficient qualifications and status, appeared in the Palais Evening News and became the cover character of the first issue after the revision. Prince Yunfield had already agreed, but the next morning, just after the release of the fourth issue of the Palais Daily, a message came from the Palace of Versailles, and Prince Yunfield cancelled the scheduled itinerary. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 398. Prince Yunfield's sense of smell is very keen. When he saw the fourth edition of the Par Daily, he knew that he would never accept the invitation of the Palais Evening News to be the cover character at this time. The subsequent record sales of 500,000 copies also confirmed the intuition of Prince Yunfield. If you know that the sales of the Prince Yunyi, who is the cover of the Palais Evening News, is not as good as the Par Daily, will it not give the illusion that the Prince of Yunfield can't match the Master of Ziwei? When the bad news was obtained, the Marquis of Clozel had just sent away the principal assistant Ben Shaman. Ben Shaman's man can be said to be slick and almost innocent. He revealed to the Marquis of Gloucester the appreciation of the Lord of the West, but also mentioned that Ziwei had refused to become victor. Hugo Disciple's suggestion. This is a very crucial news. The Marquis of Clozel can be sure that the Lord of Change, although he appreciates Sylvester Frost, should not be in his head. In this way, there is only one enemy that the Closer family needs to face, that is, Sylvester Frost himself. He is a high-level magician, but he is still not in the eyes of the Closer family. All positive efforts have become useless. Under the rapid impact of the Par Daily, the Par Evening News is almost impossible to do. This trouble must be completely solved. The Marquis of Clozel stepped into the depths of the mansion, the most solemn of the lightest dynasty. In the dark room, the Marquis of Clozel lit a translucent gel-like candle, the white fireworks ignited, and soon formed a white crow that was purely smoky. The shape of the white crow did not last long and soon became a pair of dark eyes. A scornful voice suddenly sounded in the void, "My dear brother, how do you think about contacting me?" "David, I am in trouble." The Marquis of Clozel did not have any surprised expression, as if he had already been familiar with it. "Brother, you are recognized as the best homeowner in the past 100 years, leading the Closer family to the peak of the thriving day. What troubles will need to use my psychiatrist who hides the underground mouse?" Xavi Frost, a Japanese wizard who suddenly popped up. "I think you should pay attention to today's Par Daily," the Marquis of Gloucester responded gloomily. "I need you go help me to detect his true strength." Xavi Frost? Holding the Master of the Star? Well, my brother, waiting for my news. The dark eyes slowly dissipated in nothingness. On this day, Ziwei received 2 invitations, also from Princess Lucia, but the guests were Seymour Frost and Joe Bradley. The content of this invitation is a high-end gathering, organized by the eldest son of the Duke of Orleans, Antonio, in his own luxury manner, a feast for the upper class. This is undoubtedly a very good opportunity to put his reputation suddenly out of the scene, and the promotion of the camera has been completely detonated. This is a busy period of time and has been busy with the flock of orders and customers. However, this product of the Wind Mobile has not yet received enough exposure. Ziwei thought of a good plan, and Princess Lucia and the eldest son of the Duke of Orleans are very good partners, so he will take Ziwei Fu Lui's name attended the dinner. The Orleans Manor is located on the outskirts of King's Polly, a few thousand hectares. It has the largest hunting grounds in the Kingdom of France, with wild and artificially cultivated rare beasts, and even Pegasus and several other magical creatures. And Orleans Castle is also the most luxurious social place, perfect for providing the services you like. In this luxurious and spectacular castle, the number of simple waiters and maids is more than 1,000. The Orleans family is the most powerful family with the rise of the French kingdom, and grows like the ivy, never decaying. 11 Wei flew over the sky with his magic flying carriage summoned with a 6-ring spell. In par, all casters have no right to cast spells of more than 3 rings without applying and filing. The entire king is covered with a magical surveillance system built by the French Magician Guild to guard against any possible damage. But outside par, the ban has lost its effect. Although the magic flying carriage is a 6-ring summoning spell, it is not a combat spell, so the spell model is not too rare. There are too many strange things that the Orleans family has seen, and the magical flying carriages are not uncommon. They politely receive and inform the arrival of Master Sylvester Frost, and then naturally the maids lead the way in front of him. The first feeling of Ziwei on Orleans Castle is that the castle is definitely a castle built by magic. Otherwise, it is impossible to violate the laws of nature and support such a large number of pillars. Banquet Hall. Although the various art decorations occupy most of the space, the banquet hall now accommodates more than 500 people, of which more than 300 are dressed in uniforms, handsome and beautiful waiters and maids. There is a very luxurious keyboard in the corner. A female musician is playing a light piece of music. This female musician is the member of the orchestra from Vienna, the capital of music, at the opening of the Midsummer Night Music Festival. For this so-called high society banquet itself, Ziwei did not catch a cold. His eyes swept through the crowd in the banquet hall, and soon found his own goal. A group of young aristocrats and men and women surrounded the Antonio and Lucia princess as the stars. They are the core of the banquet. The guest invited by Antonio is the young member of the high society of Pai Li, and there are not many high-ranking elders. Therefore, the whole banquet has become a feast for young people, and the atmosphere is very pleasant and relaxed. Antonio, who has the gray-haired ash of the Orleans family, first noticed the arrival of Sylvester Frost. He instantly put on a warm smile. "See who is coming? Holding the stars in the west, master." The hustle and bustle of the small circle instantly stopped, and everyone was watching the young magician who suddenly became famous for the explosion of Pai Li during the day. Ziwei is a human form at this moment. He is not wearing a moon-white magic robe, but a royal blue uniform, which shows the luxury and noble taste. It does not look like a magician, but rather like an elegant aristocratic youth. To be continued. Arcane Age. Author, Yulin Dudu. Chapter 399. Antonio secretly admired that if the Ziwei master is as dazzling as the Parley Daily, it would be too unsocial to inflict a large number of people. However, in front of him, he has a low-key taste of luxury, and no one can pick out any problems. This is the first time that Ziwei and Antonio have met, although they once played in the Dark Magic Academy once. "Mr. Ziwei, it seems that you will adjust your identity." Princess Lucia smiled and greeted her, "But say good Japanese elves? You can't satisfy me like this." Not only her, but a group of aristocratic girls who had been around her almost all came up, and almost all of them had left an interview invitation in the Par Daily. The first edition of the 4 consecutive editions of the Parley Daily pictures are beautiful, and the 3 women have won countless praises and adoring fans. At the same time, Ziwei has no doubt that he is perfect with his elves. The looks and coolness to the ultimate special effects have harvested a large number of female admirers. Yeah, we have to watch the Japanese elves. These aristocratic girls are quite bold, and they are very close to each other. Since the elf retreat more than 2,000 years ago, the purebred elves that have appeared throughout the Orient continent have been rare, even the half-elves, because the elves of the generations have become increasingly rare, elf signs are becoming less and less obvious. Therefore, the Ziwei, which can become a full-time elf, is like a rare elite. When they are in front of this group of aristocratic girls who are full of curiosity and do not have too much scruples, they instantly fall into a fanatic mood. If there were Antonio and Lucia princesses here, Ziwei might soon be lighted by them. In this way, these burning eyes to the extreme eyes have already made Ziwei cool on his back. This is not a human being, it is simply a group of hungry little female wolves. Therefore, Ziwei was determined to never become the shape of the Japanese elf. He just smiled and talked with Antonio. Ziwei, Antonio, and Lucia have one thing in common, that is, they have both the dual identity of the magician and the nobility, so they have a common language. So when everyone is holding a heart that they want to know and approach, the conversation will be very enjoyable and the time will be very fast. Is the application of magic popular to mortals, so that these mortals can also enjoy the innovation brought by magic? Faced with the concept of Ziwei peddling, Antonio shook his head gently. The world of magic is so vast, I wait it's hard to get to the top when you spend your whole life, let alone these mortals. They simply can't understand the subtlety of magic. What Wei did not expect was that the heir of the Duke of Orleans actually agreed with the identity of the magician, but this is not an obstacle. If Ziwei can convince Odonjo, for the popular car, and even the promotion of the next Violet Chamber of Commerce, it will be smoother. Mr. Antonio, you should know that my Chamber of Commerce recently launched a magical product, the camera. Unlike ordinary magical things, the camera can be used even by mortals who know nothing about magic, said. In fact, the Violet Chamber of Commerce also has a product, that is, a windmobile. Riding it, you can become a chasing teenager, enjoy the rapid fun. Before 11 July, he had specifically learned about the heir to the Duke of Orleans. His favorite sport is undoubtedly a horse race. Horses carefully cultivated by various families compete in the track. This is the newspaper fan important report content. The racing car racing program can naturally be developed. Ordinary people can ride bicycles without any magic device. With the promotion of the magician level, the current highest level of wind speed can exceed 100 km per magic time. It is a real popular car. Antonio is undoubtedly a young man who likes to seek excitement. He quickly accepted the only custom-made luxury version of the Orleans family inscriptions, and promised that as long as the experience is good, it will help promote the popular as soon as possible. Car racing competition. 11 Wei did not think that things would go so smoothly. When he came to this dinner, he was less than half magical. Now he seems to be too disrespectful to his master. At this moment, Antonio showed him a mysterious smile of self-seeking and happiness, then turned and flew away, and a group of aristocratic girls headed by Princess Lucia surrounded him in the center. This group of aristocratic girls took out a single fuel-free lamp. They were the daughters of the top family in France. At least the Countess appeared around Ziwei. The weekdays were dignified, mature, elegant and lively, but almost all of them were incarnate at this moment. Little devil. I am very sorry, Antonio has been sent away by me. Princess Lucia showed a smug smile on her face. I wonder if I can invite Mr. Ziwei to go upstairs. However, he did not wait for Ziwei to promise. He was hugged by the two noble ladies and left and right, and came to a small hall on the second floor of Orleans Castle. Although it is a small hall, it is also very luxurious, and it is not crowded to accommodate dozens of people. Mr. Ziwei, we are all your admirers, don't let us down. Faced with Joe Bradley, Princess Lucia had absolute confidence that he would fall under his pomegranate skirt, but she did not have too much confidence in this mysterious master Ziwei. Originally, Princess Lucia had chosen to develop a relationship with Joe, but when the image of Sylvia was finally released, she was almost captured by the charm of the speak. If this is a game, the value of the Westway charm of the Japanese elf form has undoubtedly reached the limit of mortal. Ziwei knows that if he doesn't say anything, I am afraid that these aristocratic girls in front of me will tear off the camouflage avatar and the wolf will rush, so they have to change into the Japanese elf form. Visible to the naked eye, the auricles of his two ears began to slowly extend backwards, longer and longer, more and more pointed, and the skin became whiter and brighter, as if there was a kind of light in the light. Let him, the whole person has become very shining. Although the changes in the five senses are not large, in a flash, Ziwei has become full of extraordinary charm. Speaking of it, these aristocratic girls should be regarded as the first real close fans. Ziwei quickly emerged with a force shield. I can take a photo with each person alone, as a commemoration for you. This invisible position shield blocked several idiots who lost their minds and rushed forward. You know that there are 34 people here, but only one man, but the scene is out of control and the consequences are unimaginable. To be continued.